Flexibility for equestrians offers power, mindfulness, and awareness. That means that flexibility is powerful. It keeps equestrians safe. It allows them to let go of what is keeping them in place, stuck, and unaware of what their true capabilities could be. Flexibility as an equestrian doesn't have to do with how flexible they are in a physical sense. Instead, it has to do with their mental flexibility. Are they able to shift when it is required to find success? And automatically, equestrians have flexibility because when we are riding our horses, we have to make minute by minute, second by second decisions based upon how our horse is reacting to, say, our cues, to what's going on around them. But I think equestrians lack flexibility in what they want their equestrian life to look like, or what they allow their equestrian life to look like. And that's where I want to talk about the power of flexibility today. Welcome to Yoga for the Barn Aisle by Callebaut Yoga. I'm your host, Makayla. I am a certified yoga instructor. I have been part of the equestrian world for over 13 years, almost my entire life. And I am also holding a bachelor's of psychology degree. So combining these three pillars, I want to bring to you why flexibility matters as an equestrian and what you can do today to change your equestrian life. So first, let's break down what I meant by protection, mindfulness, and awareness from the intro to this video, or podcast, depending on how you're listening to this. But first, flexibility offers protection because of the safety mechanism being able to shift and pivot when necessary gives you. So again, going back to my example of in the saddle, maybe you are someone who does show jumping. Well, that flexibility has to do with maybe how you're approaching a fence, whether you want the perfect distance, you might be coming up long or a little bit short, and you're making a minor adjustment for the safety and protection of you and your horse. Now, from a mental sense, flexibility offers protection by recognizing how to spend the time you have with your horse on any given day. Now, that's a little bit confusing, so let me explain further. Thinking about having a goal or something you want to achieve every day with your horse is great. But when these goals or plans keep you stuck, they no longer offer you the protection you need as an equestrian. You need the flexibility to say, this was the plan for today. This plan no longer is adequate for what's going on. So a primary example of this from my own life is when I am getting out to the barn and I recognize that it's a really windy day or the weather has just changed. Usually those things come together. But my original plan might have been to go and ride my horse Bo for a little while. Well, Bo is retired or semi-retired, for lack of a better explanation. And so he doesn't get ridden much. I do a lot of walking with him, a lot of groundwork. But with the weather change, I also know that he changes a lot. He gets more frisky, he has more energy. There's a quicker reaction time out of him when the weather has drastically changed or when it's windy and there's more things to spook at. So my flexibility as an equestrian allows me to get to the barn, recognize what's going on, and shift from today I wanted to get on and ride him to today what I'm going to do is go in the arena and just focus on having him connect to me and asking for him to ignore and block out the trees blowing in the wind and instead see how in tune we can get with one another and then push the groundwork if it's applicable to how he's behaving. This is when the flexibility allows for protection of myself as well as for my horse. And that's what you need to be able to do as an equestrian. And I understand that not all equestrians have the same practicality of this skill because maybe you are someone that shows up for lessons with your trainer. That means that it is now your trainer's responsibility to shift when necessary, but it also means that you need to advocate for you and your horse and what you need that day, even if your trainer's lesson plan doesn't align. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of confidence in yourself as a rider, knowing you and your horse. And I applaud any rider that goes in and says, hey, this isn't going to work for me today. And maybe it's you don't ride in a lesson that day, maybe you just practice, or maybe you get off and you lunge first and then you come back. And good trainers, the mark of a good trainer is understanding that every one of their clients is a little bit different and that every one of their horses is a little bit different. And one lesson will not fit every single one of their clients and every single one of their horses. The second topic I want to discuss is this idea of mindfulness and how flexibility as an equestrian increases and improves your mindfulness. And this is because the more opportunities you give yourself to be flexible and to create change, the more mindful you become in the changes you make. So it might be little micro shifts that you start to make because you're so mindful about how the weather affects your horse or how the time of day affects your horse. And it might just be a 15-minute marker that changes what you and your horse are capable of that day. And I don't mean capable in the sense of what your skill level is. I mean capable as in what is best for you to do with that horse in order for you and your horse to be successful and to stay safe. Mindfulness is therefore a power of being flexible as an equestrian. And finally, I want to talk about an increase of awareness, and this bleeds into the mindfulness, but an increase of awareness that comes from flexibility. Just giving yourself the ability to be flexible gives yourself the bandwidth to recognize more of what's going on. And this awareness will take you from one level as an equestrian to an entire different level as an equestrian. It's going to be an exponential increase in your skill set, your knowledge base, especially of you and your horse in the equestrian world. So thinking about awareness brings me to a piece of yoga philosophy. And this is from the kleshas, which are essentially struggles that one has throughout their lifetime. And it's not like there are 5 kleshas. And it's not this idea of you meet this struggle once and then you overcome it and it's no longer part of your life. It's the idea of routine struggles that you kind of have to find a way to live with and radically accept them. So today I want to talk about the klesha called raga, or attachment. Now, in regards to raga or attachment, we immediately want to think about how great attachment is, how much power and connection it gives us. Well, I'm going to flip the script here, and this is what yoga philosophy asks you to look at attachment as. What is attachment holding you back from? Now, for an equestrian, how much is your attachment to the plan, the goal, the vision holding you back from being flexible and safe in your day-to-day life as an equestrian? You might be attached to these long-term goals, but if that attachment causes you to be rigid in your day-to-day life, meaning you're lacking flexibility, that piece of attachment isn't safe for you. You're not practicing ahimsa, non-harming. So if you're a little bit confused on how to apply raga to your equestrian life, I want you to ask yourself this question. How can I recognize my attachments for what they are, whether they are goals, plans, or routines, while also allowing myself flexibility to align with the version of myself that I meet in the barn aisle every day? And this question is a very deep question. This isn't going to be something that you easily answer. So my advice would be pull out a journal or create a blank document on your computer. Maybe you even sit and meditate on this question. Notice what comes to you And then notice any themes that you have. Are you overly attached to the vision, to the plan? Or maybe are you overly attached to being flexible? And there's a dichotomous nature to raga and attachment. And in my personal opinion, I think it's the best to be somewhere in the middle of recognizing the power and strengths of attachment while also being able to recognize the weaknesses of attachment. And by standing in the middle of this continuous spectrum of what attachment can be, it allows you to be the most grounded while maintaining attachments and letting go of them when it's necessary. So a great example that I discussed earlier, bringing back the idea of attachment, is changing my plan, shifting from I'm going to go for a ride to I'm going to work on connection in a groundwork capacity with me on the ground to keep both myself and my horse safe. My lack of raga or lack of attachment to my plan allowed me to be flexible. And this is where flexibility is a superpower of equestrians. Now, to end this conversation, I want to really recognize the theme of winter arc that we've been talking about for the last 7 episodes now. But in this winter arc, and with New Year's approaching, there's this pressure to perform, to increase your skills, to work hard. And I want you to acknowledge the attachment you have to what your winter arc, your New Year's resolutions, your new goals mean to you. Hold that attachment. There's nothing wrong with being attached to working hard. But in that same breath, I want you to recognize the season, the actual physical season that you are an equestrian in. So it's winter. It is spooky season. The weather is not so nice. Our horses change in the winter, and it becomes, we need to be more aware of the weather, I would say, in the winter because of how it affects our horse and therefore how it affects the safety of us when interacting with our horse. So that's where you need to have attachment to your goals, which is wonderful, but have enough detachment from your goals to recognize that the season and what the weather brings might mean that you need to shift how you're achieving those goals. So rather than setting fences higher, going for more rides, which is a great way to achieve goals, but it could lead to burnout and other things, maybe you choose to look at, if I'm trying to level up in terms of the class you're showing in, or how high you're jumping, or whatever it may be, your skill set, why is there not a focus on the connection you have with your horse? Now, if you focus on building that connection, building that partnership, meeting these external goals is going to be easier. And that's assuming that you and your horse both have the physical capabilities of doing that higher goal. So when you're recognizing that it's spooky season, that it's winter, that allows you to detach from those external goals enough to reattach to wanting to build your partnership, which will get you to the same end goal. So when you're done looking at the last journal prompt or thought prompt, I want you to think about finding that balance between your goals and also acknowledging the challenges of the season and where you can meet in the middle and how many ways or how many pathways you can take to reach the same goal. Because in doing that work, in describing how many pathways you can take, you'll notice what is best suited for you and your horse today and every day after, recognizing the power of your flexibility as an equestrian. Thank you so much for listening and or watching to today's episode. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, hit the follow button, maybe even leave a comment or review. I am looking to grow this podcast into a community, into Callebaut Yoga's community of wonderful equestrians who all want to work together to increase their mindfulness skills in the barn aisle. Now, that said, if you could share this with someone you think would enjoy the conversation or who needs to hear it, that would mean so much to me, because truly podcasts tend to be a word of mouth type of growth. And that means you are who I'm asking for help here. If you want to learn more about Callebaut Yoga, visit the link in the comment, in the bio, in the description, or visit callebautyoga.com. It'll get you to the same place. There you can look at what courses and programs I have to offer, as well as subscribe to the email list for VIP access to new and upcoming live online workshops, new programs, as well as being part of a space where I ask you what you want to see from an equestrian life coach like me. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.